A billionaire father brings his disabled son to Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant. A black waitress accepts the boy's trembling invitation, letting him lead a single, imperfect step. That quiet defiance snaps something open in the father. Power meets dignity. A door unlocks. And 3 lives change, one step at a time. Silence drops like velvet over Kingsley's, the kind of hush that doesn't ask permission. Glass stems pause midair. Blades still against porcelain. Eyes angled toward a small clearing between tables where a boy with metal braces lifts a hand that won't stop shaking. His name is Lucas Montgomery, 10 years old, breath high in his chest, jaw set with the brittle courage of someone trying not to need help. The live piano slides into a soft melody. A few notes spill, then settle. Lucas looks at the black waitress, who has become an expert in erasing herself from rooms like this. Soft steps, neutral smile, a voice that seldom carries. Diana Johnson sees the question before he speaks it. He wants to dance. Not to be carried. Not to be corrected. To dance. Sir, control your son. The manager's voice is stainless steel, sharp, reflective, cold. This is not a dance hall. Our employees do not entertain children. Heads pivot toward the corner booth where Richard Montgomery sits. His name is currency in rooms that were expensive before they were built. His tie is immaculate, his mouth a straight line, the slightest flinch breaking through when he sees Lucas's leg brace quiver. Lucas extends his hand anyway. Diana stares from boy to father to manager, all the unspoken rules coiling in the air between them. Then she unties her apron, folds it with ritual care, sets it on a tray, and looks down at Lucas with a small, conspiratorial smile. I can't dance in an apron, she says, as if the whole room were obvious and the rest were details. Richard rises halfway out of the booth. The manager steps forward, panic disguised as policy. But Diana has already taken the boy's outstretched hand. Together they carve the smallest of paths through the hushed 3 steps, not special, not pretty. The metal braces sing a thin, scraping note, and still Diana does not lead. She waits, mirrors, lets her body learn his rhythm. Around them, wealth holds its breath. Someone whispers she's getting fired tomorrow. Someone else wonders who the waitress thinks she is. Lucas's eyes shift, fear thinning into concentration, shame evaporating into a proud, shy light that seems to come from the inside out. It lasts less than a minute. It changes everything. Diana returns him to the table. Thank you for asking me, she tells him with the formality reserved for adults who have earned it. She turns to go back into invisibility, but the father's voice interrupts, different from the one he uses on phones and in boardrooms. Your name, he says, as if he will need it later for something he doesn't yet understand. Diana Johnson, she answers. He offers a card, a time, my office. Tomorrow. 10. The room reanimates, the orchestra of cutlery, breath, gossip, while inside the father, a memory stirs, a woman in a living room, another life, a different song, a whisper about connection over perfection. Montgomery Tower glitters like a certainty the morning she arrives. Marble makes a hard echo of her steps. Glass washes her reflection in expensive light. In a navy skirt and white blouse bought on sale, Diana moves like someone who's spent years learning to take up as little space as possible and has recently grown tired of it. The receptionist's gaze is clinical. The elevator's a scent of breath she holds until the doors reopen onto a corridor of mirrors. Miss Winters receives her with posture that doubles as a question. 18th floor. Eyes follow them. Curiosity hums. A black woman walking through executive offices triggers familiar speculation about how she got here and whether she will be allowed to leave unmarked. He stands facing the window when she enters, as if he owns the city and is trying to remember why. Richard Montgomery turns with a face composed to look neutral and a voice chosen to sound in control. He thanks her for coming. He does not apologize for summoning her. He lets silence do what silence does to most people, makes them fill it with something they didn't plan to say. She sets her purse on her lap and lets the silence starve instead. Your background? He asks at last. Child development, she says. NYU. Master's in Special Education, unfinished. He blinks, the first crack in a surface polished by decades of winning. And you work as a waitress. I work, she answers simply. At the restaurant. At a bookstore on weekends. I tutor when I can get students. He opens a file. Freedom Steps, photos, articles, a stack of paper that smells faintly of toner and judgment. You founded this. Co-founded, she corrects, with my sister Zoe. Adaptive dance for children with physical disabilities. We're about to close. Funding. He nods, the way men nod when they have been standing on a problem they could have picked up at any time. I don't want a dancer for my son, he says, something rough in the place where the words come from. I want someone who can do what you did, follow, not lead. He offers a number that would rebuild her life twice. She stands. No, surprise hits him like a misstep. Dignity, she explains, not unkindly. I don't work for people who see color and class before confidence, or who try to purchase cures for pain that has to be lived through. She leaves a card on his desk. Freedom Steps. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 p.m. First class is free if you choose to come. If he chooses to lead. The door closes softly behind her, and in the stillness, he realizes he has not given an order that mattered all morning. A Bentley appears that Wednesday like a misplaced punctuation mark in front of the community center's old warehouse. Inside, walls bloom with handmade posters, your rhythm, your rules, every move counts, progress over perfection. Kids in wheelchairs draw bright circles with their wheels. A boy with a prosthetic leg invents a sequence and names it after himself. The floor vibrates with bass set low to be felt rather than heard. From the window, Diana watches the car doors. Zoe, scarf pinned and eyebrows arched, says, he'll stay in the car. Men like him don't come inside places like this. Don't underestimate a determined son, Diana says, thinking of the tiny, trembling hand that broke a room in two. The back door opens first. Lucas steps out, adjusts the cuffs around his braces, stares at the building like a cliff he's planning to climb. Then the front door opens and the father emerges in clothes that have never known a sale rack but are trying not to scream it. They enter together. Richard surveys the room, thrown by the improvisational physics of it all. It looks chaotic, he offers, defaulting to a criticism that sounds like concern. There's structure, Diana says. Just not the kind you recognize. She kneels near Lucas. Want to join? He nods and looks up for permission. Go on, Richard tells him, a sentence that tastes new in his mouth. Zoe gives the billionaire a folding chair as if it were a throne. The first day is hardest, she begins. For the kids, he asks. For the parents, she finishes, smiling. The studio door opens. An older woman enters with an elegant cane and the gravity of a retired comet. Dr. Elaine Mercer, Zoe whispers. Neuroscience. Brain plasticity. Harvard, until she decided she could do more outside. She greets children first. Then she turns to Richard. You've rejected my proposals 3 times, she says without heat. We study non-directive movement and neural reconfiguration. He looks briefly offended, mostly embarrassed. I thought this was a dance class. It is, Diana says, reappearing, cheeks warm with work. It's also a pilot rehabilitation program on movement autonomy. Why wait tables if you run this? He asks. Because we don't have money yet. And because people like you rejected us 3 times, Zoe says, sweet as science. The penny lands. He glances at the father and son photo on her corkboard and swallows something he can't name. Reporters arrive, pens, cameras, the faint noise of a dozen narratives assembling themselves. Richard stiffens. Part 2 of the plan? He asks. We published our first results today, Dr. Mercer says. We invited press. You used my son, he says, anger cooling to precision. Diana leads him into a side room where the walls are quilted with photos and progress notes, first rotations, first unsupported shifts, first small steps that look like miracles only if you have never watched effort do arithmetic on the body. He stops at an empty frame. "What's this?" "Our future," she says. 500 children a year if we had resources. Not 50. We would build a center designed by the kids who use it. He looks at the empty frame and sees a place where his money might finally learn manners. A shout cuts the air. They race back to the floor. The music is off. The room is a circle made from concern. Lucas stands inside it, one brace unclipped, balance tilting like a young tree in a wind he's decided to trust. Richard surges forward. Diana's hand on his arm says wait. The boy inhales, concentrates, steps. It's small, shaky, unassisted, a sovereign act. The circle erupts. Cameras strobe. In the father's eyes, something long-dammed brims at the edge. Diana's voice threads the noise. It isn't about perfect steps. It's about first steps on your own. He looks at his son as if for the first time, not a problem to be solved, not an investment to protect, but a human being making a new rule for himself. The press turns to him like sunflowers. "Mr. Montgomery, comment? Is it true your foundation rejected funding for Freedom Steps 3 times?" He glances at Lucas, who is too busy practicing his new step to notice the narrative shifting around him. Humility is not a tool he recognizes by touch. He chooses it anyway. "What's hardest for someone in my position?" he says, pitching his voice to the room. "Admitting when we're wrong." A silence rings, the kind that resets clocks. The Montgomery Foundation will fully fund Freedom Steps for 5 years and build a permanent rehabilitation center based on Dr. Mercer and Ms. Johnson's methodology. Flashes erupt. Zoe laughs like a surprise she's been saving. Richard lifts a hand. On one condition, Ms. Johnson retains full autonomy. No corporate interference. The room recalibrates around a new center of gravity. Ground breaks in a season that smells like dust and possibility. Bulldozers chew earth where a blueprint once floated. Children in helmets tour the site, pointing to corners that will be theirs. The center's design language is invented by the people who will use it. Low handles, wide arcs, quiet rooms for reset, windows at wheelchair height to catch late afternoon light. A young boy chooses the wall color for a studio and names it Morning Courage. A girl insists on textured flooring so she can hear with her feet. Diana walks the site with a clipboard and a habit of kneeling to talk eye level. Lucas becomes a regular, sometimes arriving with other kids like a Pied Piper with braces. He's down to one lightweight brace now, balance trained by thousands of micro-choices and a community that behaves like a net you can't see but can always feel. Richard shows up more than anyone expected. At first, he stands at the edges like a donor visiting a painting he purchased. Then he sits in on planning meetings, frowning at diagrams until they make sense. He learns vocabulary he used to skim. "I never thought I'd study neuroplasticity at 50, he says, rubbing at eyes that finally know how to get tired. "Is this penance or care?" Diana asks one afternoon. He looks past her to a photo of Lucas balancing on one crutch. Lucas asked to remove his second brace, he says. His former therapist said 2 years. "You told me she was wrong." "I fired her." "You were right." She nods. "That wasn't an apology," she says softly. "That was logistics." He nods back. "Fair." 6 months later, the doors open. It isn't opulence that catches the breath, it's intention. Ramps curve like invitations. Mirrors tilt to meet different eye lines. A quiet room hums faintly with white noise, a sanctuary for nervous systems. In the main hall, Lucas leads a small routine with 3 other kids. His movements are still limited but threaded with a confidence no prediction chart accounted for. Richard watches from the margins, hands empty, posture unbossed. "He doesn't need you to hold him," Diana says. "No," the father answers, "but he needs me to be around." Crucial difference, she says, and lets the moment stand upright between them. A reporter approaches with the comfortable hunger of someone who knows where stories grow. "Mr. Montgomery, how does it feel to see your son's progress?" Richard looks to the floor where Lucas now helps a younger girl find her balance. "Proud," he says. Not of what he's overcome, of what he's creating for others. "Biggest lesson?" the reporter asks. He meets the camera with the steadiness of someone who's learned to share the frame. That leadership isn't forcing people down the path you think is right. It's having the courage to follow when someone shows a better way. Time adds chapters you can only read after they're written. A year grows out of the first day like a tree-learned sky. Freedom Steps expands to other cities, 3 at first, then more. Hospitals adopt protocols they once dismissed as soft, too human to be science, too gentle to be medicine. The Pediatric Rehabilitation Innovation Award lands in Diana's hands, the plaque heavier than it looks. She accepts without pretending the work is finished. She thanks the children first. She thanks the sisters who hold the floor open when others try to close it. She thanks a late wife whose living room once turned into a small, perfect studio for a young boy and a soft song. A different morning, Lucas waits outside a regular school, a light cane on days when the weather presses too hard on old injuries. He speaks to an assembly about autonomy like it's a dance anyone can learn if they're willing to go slowly enough to feel themselves doing it. He doesn't talk about billionaire fathers or restaurant managers or boardrooms that own the sunrise. He talks about first steps, how small they are, how loud they can be if you listen without interrupting. And the father, what's left to say? He still owns towers and makes decisions that move numbers with frightening speed. He also stands sometimes at the glass and watches the streets he thought belonged to him. He thinks of a black waitress folding an apron before refusing to be invisible, of a boy insisting on leading even when his foot dragged like a tired day. He thinks about how money didn't fix the thing he loved most, following did. On a quiet evening in the center's main hall, after the last class and before the lights go down, Richard finds Diana taping a new photo into the once empty frame, a shot from the opening day, kids in motion. Parents crying the kind of tears nobody has time to be embarrassed about. "I owe you an apology," he says at last. "Not just for rejecting proposals or letting policy be my religion. For the night in the restaurant, for assuming your worth could be measured in tips." She studies him, then nods. "Apology accepted," she says. "With one condition." He smiles, remembering. "No corporate interference?" "No," she says, smiling back. "Dance floor rules. We follow the kids. We keep following." He laughs, a sound that belongs to him in a way the city never has. Some endings are just doors holding still. At Kingsley's, on an otherwise forgettable Tuesday, a pianist modulates into something soft. A new manager watches a new waitress carry plates between tables where conversations rise and fall like tides. At a corner table, a father visits with his son. The boy wears a brace so light it could pass for an accessory, a cane resting against the chair like a bookmark. The father has learned the luxury of letting time pass without filling it. "Do you hear this one?" the boy asks when the melody breaks into a brighter bridge. "I do," the father says. "Wanna dance?" Lucas asks, grinning now, not to test a boundary, but to open a memory and let light in. The father glances around, no hush tonight, no policy scraping its chair back. He stands, and the room makes room. A few people watch. Most don't. The pianist sees and plays a little warmer. And the two of them, one once afraid of cameras, the other once afraid of steps, move in a small circle that belongs to them. No leading. No following. Just the music finding a place to live.